is. I'll just continue to eat.
Well, actually, we are live, so let's not take that bite, or or do.
It was little.
It was a little bite. All right. Welcome, folks, once again to the second in our Cosplayer costume profile series, and the second with Kitteninstrings Cosplay, talking about the Princess Zelda costume.
Just continue to eat.
We got so many. So let's not take that bite. Or I'm hearing myself somewhere. Or do.
It was little.
Am I hearing myself on you guys? I must be. Welcome, folks, once again.
I changed nothing.
Oh, maybe it's on my end. Never mind.
Okay.
It must have been on my end. Yes, part 2, because you guys had so many questions after the fact about how this costume was made and the techniques and materials and all the whole process. We had to do a number 2. We had to do a number 2. Sorry about that. We had to do a second part, and this one will be at least 15 minutes like the last one was, maybe even 20. Going forward, these will be probably 30 minutes, because apparently there's enough questions out there all about this. So, Bonnie the Bunny, hello. Osvaldo, hello. Terry, Hero of Hyrule, hello. Maria, hello. Kirsten, hello. Waifu, hello. And DK Fan 87, yo. As they say. Jenny, hello. Yeah, so, last time we talked a lot about, material, we talked a little bit about technique, and I don't want to go over a whole lot of that. I will get back into just a little bit of things that might be important, sort of a general overlook. Jenna, tell us once again what source or what particular version of the Legend of Zelda franchise this is from, and where did you get the design inspiration for it specifically?
All right, so this is Twilight Princess Legend of Zelda. It is the Princess Zelda costume from the video game. What we ended up using for the source material was a little Amiibo. When the Amiibos first came out was about when I started the costume. The reason why I started doing this specific costume was because my then, I want to say 5-year-old, was in love with the game, and he really wanted me to do Twilight Princess, and he could do Link. I also ended up doing 2 costumes at the same time because my friend Leo Rose Cosplay wanted me to make her the same costume at the same time. So.
Cool. Now, you mentioned this, and we got a lot of comments last time about the idea of using an Amiibo. There was enough detail in one of those little figures to actually give you the kind of detail you needed for like the armor and the patterns and everything?
Yeah. Actually, why don't I have Bill go grab it and I can show it later on.
All right. Cool. So one of the things that we didn't talk a whole lot about is the particular techniques used in any given part of it. So let's start with the actual the dress part itself.
Sure.
You talked a little bit about the not embroidery. What am I looking for? The applique work. But talk about how you decided, whether you're doing machine, what needed to be machine, what needed to be hand stitched. How you made that decision based on whatever the factors were.
All right. So at that point, I did not have an embroidery machine. I only had a regular sewing machine, and I had a little bit of hand embroidery skill and a friend who really, really loves to embroider. So since Bill is back, if I could get him to show this right here, and it'll show up the difference between applique and embroidery. So right there is fine. This right here and this part of the phoenix or the bird, I don't know what the birds are called in Legend of Zelda.
We'll go with phoenix. It sounds good.
Yes. But applique. Applique process is when you take a base fabric, which for this would be the gray suede, and your applique fabric, which in this case was just plain cotton, and you put it on top of your base fabric, and then you would stitch around the edge to get it to stay. In this case, I used a very, very tight zigzag stitch in a gold metallic thread. And what I ended up doing was I did a very wide zigzag stitch just to hold it in place at first. A lot of people will either use a basting spray, which looks like a can of Elmer's spray glue, and they'll spray it on the back of your applique, and then they'll put it on top of the base fabric, and it will basically let it dry, and it'll stay there while you're sewing.
So basically, in the photography world, we call the mounting spray. You mount photos to your backing boards.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And then...
So the other piece is what kind of sewing technique?
I usually call it faux embroidery. I believe the correct term would probably be called satin stitching. Would be these details right up here. And on the bottom, actually, on the gloves, particularly, move your arm, thank you. If you can see how it's got this really, really pretty detailing on it. Let me just bring it over to the camera.
You're losing focus as you get that close, so there you go. Now tilt it downward. Keep going.
Not you.
No. Yeah, Billy, not you.
Camera, stop.
I'm trying to get, there we go. I'm trying to get it out of the direct light.
There we go. So this is what I was calling faux embroidery or satin stitching, where I would take a Sharpie, the finest tip Sharpie that I could find, and I would trace the pattern that I wanted onto the glove, and then I would use that as my basis to do a very, very tight zigzag stitch over each and every bit of the pattern. Okay,
very cool. I can imagine that was stressful, or certainly detail oriented, just like an LGBTQ pride. Welcome to the show, Jackson Ortez. Welcome to the show. And again, as last time, say hi to your mom for me. Welcome to the show. If you have any questions about any of the stuff, pop them up there in the chat, and I'll throw them out.
So, this is actually what I ended up using. For the apron, I did everything out in Sharpie. We did half of it, and then we folded it in half.
So with the contrast that we've got here, it is a large white sheet that you're holding over the dress. We can't see anything in it. It's just like a big piece of white.
Never mind then.
So
I will put it away.
So let's talk about techniques in the making of the armor pieces.
Sure.
We talked a little bit about the material, but we didn't talk about tools. About what you needed to use to cut, to shape, to adhere, things like that.
All right, so let's go with the belt since it's the easiest to see here. For the belt, I used Sintra and craft foam. Most of it, I found that it is 3mm thick Sintra.
So once again, let's back up for people who may not know. Sintra is a thermoplastic, so it's a plastic that you can heat to form. Correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay.
And then a 1mm craft foam to do the top decals. And then I resin cast the little blue gemstones on here. So
now
what I ended up doing...
Hold on, let's back up a little bit on that. When you say resin cast, how did you make the mold for the casting?
I did not make the mold. I actually bought pre-made silicone molds.
Okay.
At a local store. And then I had a friend of mine who did resin come over and help me. And it was so long ago. It was one of those ones where you take two different parts and you mix them, and then you stir a lot, and then you pour it in, and then you let it sit. I think we ended up forgetting about it and let it sit for a week. So, and then we did it as we did clear resin, and then we ended up getting the blue color by just taking blue nail polish and painting the back of the gem.
Oh, okay. So wow, so just the back of that is actually blue. If you
Yep.
held that like sideways and put a light through it, it would probably come through mostly clear.
It does.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
So.
Very handy. All right. So you were talking about the way you created or what you used to shape the foam over the Sintra.
Right. So with the Sintra, it's really hard to cut. I ended up really destroying my carpals by using scissors and trying to cut it.
You tried. Hold on a second. You tried to cut a hard plastic with scissors.
Yep.
Okay.
We also discovered that if we put a terry cloth towel or cotton on top of the Sintra and ironed it, it would become soft enough that it would be easier to cut.
Sky Blue, welcome to the show. Hold on a second. DK Fan 87. Yes, blurry camera is blurry because of how incredibly tightly zoomed in it is. We'll back out a little. There you go. So anyway, yeah. So you figured out warming it up makes it a little softer, a little easier to cut.
I know I have since learned that I should be using a Dremel to cut it instead of scissors. However, with the craft foam, the 1mm craft foam, we usually just used an X-Acto blade to cut around. And then I used that same basting spray or Elmer's glue spray just to glue the craft foam onto the Sintra. And then once everything was stuck on there, nice and well put together, I went over it with a sealant of Mod Podge.
Okay. So did you use that same spray to adhere all the other parts onto any other part, like in the shoulder pieces?
Yep, that's what I use for everything.
Okay. And it's clearly held up. I mean, it's never flaked open that I've ever seen. And this is, again, how old? When did you make this?
Oh, goodness. At least 2016. So it's at least 4 years old. Maybe...
older than that. So I took pictures of this at PAX East 2015.
Okay, so 2015 was when I finished.
That was 2015, that image that just popped up there, folks. So. Yeah.
So I was working on this at least during 2014 because I started it in the summer.
Ah, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, that's a good long while.
Zenkani, welcome to the show and happy April Fools. I've been pretty anti-April Fools all day, obviously with the way things are in the world, but happy April Fools. I'll give you that one. All right, so are there other materials that were used in the armor in different parts at like the shoulders or anywhere else?
Sure. So let's see here. I will actually take the pauldrons down. So this was my second foray into, don't move the camera please, into Worbla, in that I learned that I could use Worbla to stick things together.
Oh yeah.
And this is the craft foam, or not craft foam, upholstery foam that cushions everything. But I think if I angle this correctly, you can see that I actually, up here, used Worbla to hold it all together.
Huh. So, and I know once Worbla is warmed up, you can like roll that and shape it, but then you can also press it like putty to glue things together?
Exactly.
Wow.
I heated up strips of it, and I can see it. Can you see that?
Yeah, so particularly in the lower one.
Yeah, right here.
I mean, yeah.
And right there.
Yep.
There are all these 1.5-inch strips of Worbla that I just heated up and pressed it so that it would. Is that helpful, or is it?
No, we can see it. We can see the joint.
Okay.
It kind of looks like a weld.
Yeah, that's exactly. And along the edges of the Worbla, I actually melted hot glue so that it would keep it from falling apart as well.
Ah, also smart. DK Fan 87 says, "I wish I could have seen this at least once in person." Well, it still exists. You never know. You know, if we ever have cons again,
Yeah.
fingers crossed, that it may show up again. I had no idea that that's really amazing. I had no idea that you could use Worbla in that fashion. Even watching so many of my cosplay friends do Worbla tutorials.
Yeah.
So in that piece, in the armor parts of it, you've got Sintra, Worbla, you've got the foam, the resin cast gems. What am I missing? Aside from, like, obviously the upholstery foam for the cushioning.
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. Oh, not so much like base materials, but I've got keychains holding everything together. So all of these little circular parts that you can see are actually keychains, key rings. I've got bobby pins that are holding. There's a bobby pin that's hot glued right here so that it's holding up the chain part of the belt. And just black bias tape ribbon going from one to another.
So the hooks essentially on the underside of those pieces that hold up the drapery piece in the front are just bobby pins glued onto the back.
Yep.
Wow. Now that's creative. That's smart thinking. Stuff you have lying around.
Yeah.
Terry Hero of Hyrule says, "Love the cosplay of Princess Zelda."
Thank you.
Hey, Terry, let me show you while somebody else's photos, not just mine. So there's another photo from, I'm assuming that's the same time, probably one of the cons in 2015. This is one of the ones that was taken by Whimsical Wizard.
Yep.
That's the photography name they wanted us to use, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. And I believe this one was taken by the photographer Ash B. So, you know, you can see with all the wig and the thread weaving into the wig and so on, what the whole thing looks like when it's on somebody. And go back to, this was one of the shots I took. DK Fan 87, "I'm still upset that Anime Boston was canceled, but can understand why they did." Yeah, that's definitely sad news for all of us. But that's why we came up with this idea of the cosplayer costume profile, where we can get somebody who has worn one of these things at a convention before, one of their amazing cosplays, and explain all about how they did it. So, silver lining, maybe ish. Oh, is this the Amiibo?
Yeah.
This is the inspiration?
So the Amiibo that we used.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you can actually see. Is that too blurry?
It's a little on the blurry side, but we can see it.
It's trying to focus on two of us at the same time.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I can see that there's a ton of detail, even though I can't see the detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can.
But if you were able to see, it's actually got the along the bottom of her skirt. It doesn't have it in gold. It's got it in white on white.
Yep.
Raised of the little wires on the bottom of the dress, and it's got the apron part has the exact details that we used. The only thing it didn't have was the runes on the front of her dress.
Uh-huh. And you got that, you knew that was in there from the game.
Yeah.
Having seen, played the game.
However, all of the game ones are all completely different from shot to shot that we could find. So I went with the Hyrulean alphabet.
Oh, cool.
And went So on equal sides, going equally down and around, it says, "May the Triforce be with you."
Cameraman, can you zoom in a little bit on that? Maybe we can see some of those actual runes. Oh yeah. All right, cool.
So in
That's
the
good because they're still
Hyrulean
sharp.
alphabet rune, or runic alphabet, it says, "May the Triforce be with you." And it goes all the way down into the back, and just down into a little tiny Triforce.
Oh, neat. And that is all machine stitching, hand stitching, paint?
Hand stitching.
Hand stitching, okay. Very cool. DKFan87 says, I have that amiibo.
Oh, nice.
Terry, Hero of Hyrule, wow, I wish I could do a Link cosplay. There's nothing stopping you, Terry. Even if you want to go out and buy, like, pre-made from Mick Costumes or somewhere else, you know, there's tons of stuff out there, or, you know, make your own. You can go all the way to, like, Mark Hyrulean Cosplay, who literally made his own full chainmail armor for an armored Link version. So, yeah. Or just, you know, buy a nice green tunic and get the sword, and you're done.
Yep.
Oh.
And there's plenty of us who do cosplay commissions.
This is true. Speaking of which, so we've actually gone 20 minutes. So yeah, you're right. These things, we definitely needed more time. So tell us about the studio.
So I have my own shop here in Maine, Saco, Maine. I do commissions by appointment only, and on a very small basis. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm Kitteninstrings on just about every platform. My Facebook is Kit Jena, and I also run a cosplay group called Maine Cosplay Social.
Awesome, very cool. And obviously nobody's at the studio right now because of social distancing, and Maine just put in place, takes effect at midnight tonight, you know, a mandatory stay at home. Stay healthy at home, I think is what the governor called it. Smart marketing lady, that governor. And I think that's it. Sky Blue Gotcha did ask if you could dab, but, you know, that's up to you before we leave. So no dabbing. All right. Oh, Terry says, actually, I have the Link hat that is from the game. So there you go. You're
Nice.
like 1/4 of the way there, really. So, Jenna, thanks once again. This was awesome. You obviously done a fantastic job with this costume, and since I know with all your costumes, because I've photographed a lot of them. And thank you, folks, for joining us in the chat. I don't have the next one of these scheduled. This is going to be sort of an irregular series, even though we've done this on exactly the same night 2 weeks now, but don't anticipate that. But we will do another one, you know, with you know, different cosplayers, with Jenna again if she wants to profile a different costume, or whoever wants to be on. And we will see you later. Stay safe. DK Fan says I was actually going to debut a Link cosplay based on a couple images found on DeviantArt. Oh, Link having swapped clothes with Princess Peach. That's an awesome idea, DK Fan. Do get permission from the Deviant artist before you do that. That's just the polite thing to do. So you can then give them credit when somebody says, wow, that's really crazy. Where did you get the idea? You just go, this person on DeviantArt. But yeah, so thank you very much. Tune into our shows Tuesday at 8 p.m. to catch up on all the nerd news from the previous week. And stay safe, wash hands, cover mouths, cough in your elbow, all that good stuff. So Jenna, say bye.
Bye.
Thank you, cameraman, for your wonderful assistance.
I'm dabbing behind the camera.
And we'll see you later, folks. Have a good evening.